Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at episode 6 of our Eibar career mode. First game coming up is going to be against Valencia. Had a few key starting players that were a little too tired to start the game. At least in my opinion, I don't like running my players down too far in their stamina. I'd rather just let them rest for the game and bring them in as an impact sub if need be. So we do kind of switch around the lineup here a little bit. Most of the main key players are there, but trying to get us some other strikers coming into the game and letting certain players sit, like Kappa, who's been really out of form recently. It seemed like it was the best move maybe to get him out of the team for a game, but at the end it just didn't end up working out. Like I said, there were stamina issues around the squad, so we do keep, I believe, the entire front three the same. Coming into the Valencia game, I believe we were in 8th place, but with the potential to just as easily end up in 4th place or even 3rd place at the end of this game. So coming into it, I was hopeful and knew how close this league actually is, especially with Real Madrid not really performing very well this season. It is allowing Barcelona to run away up top, but second through 10th is wide open. And this is how I've been getting scored on a lot recently in FIFA, and it's really frustrating because, at the end of the day, all of this is my fault and I shouldn't even allow this much chaos to happen, but it's just like the computer is managing to actually put so much chaos on in the box that I can't really follow where the ball is going, and it's really hard to track the ball. I do the exact same thing, so like I said, I really can't argue that it's anything broken in the game. It's just kind of frustrating when you do mess up one really kind of bad pass that ends up messing everything up. But here in the 40th minute, I do try another cross and almost got the ball into the box. In between that time, though, there were really no chances for me to come back into this game. It was a lot of back and forth going on in the team and in the midfield, and neither one of us could really move forward. Neither one of us really had chances. That cross was probably as close as I was going to get, and I did end up pushing it too far towards the keeper instead of pulling it back more so that I could actually have a chance. Here in the 55th minute, a 39-yard free kick. I do have to go ahead and try the shot. Still pretty confident with my free kicks. When it is a little that far out, the keeper is able to track the ball a little bit better, and it is really difficult to get that in. But we do go ahead and kick the cross in, and it falls straight onto, I believe that's Pantic's head. So really nice goal right over the keeper. Keeper almost saved it. I think that's kind of the sweet spot right there. You want to make sure you kind of know what keeper you're coming up against. I knew that he really wasn't that fast of a keeper, so I was able to pull the ball out a little bit more so that if he did try to bait for it or try to come out and save it, that I'd be able to knock the ball just ever so slightly above his head. Here Valencia end up with a corner, and it was a little terrifying with how many players were there, and realistically I really should have been able to run that down the field with my striker, but Vardy, the left foot wonder, he seems to always just completely shank the shot. No matter how hard I hit the ball, if I hit it with his left foot, he has 0% of a chance that he's actually going to get that ball in. Really disappointed not to actually score on that break because they had so many people committed to that corner and trying to score that goal. But they were still trying to push up higher. Obviously, like I said, nobody really wanted to lose this game because of how close the top of the table actually is. So both of us pushing really high up the field. I was a little bit more patient than them, which did allow me to kind of, like I said, create a little bit of chaos in the box, and it's really like the key this year in FIFA. Once you get the ball actually down the field, just pass the ball around, confuse the defense, look for the gap, and just try to find the open man to make the shot happen. Unlucky though, keeper gets the ball, they kick it down the field, and I honestly thought that was going to be the last chance of the game, but it does fall to Inui, who passes it in to Harjrovic, and he passes the ball back into Inui, to Lilo, across the field into Vardy. Vardy with the left foot luckily pushes it the other way, so it is really hard for him to completely shank that shot, and we get the 90th minute wonder goal that actually does bring us into 4th place at the end of this game. 90th minute goal, I know a lot of people find cheesy. Some people think, how are they patching the game if they're not patching 45th and 90th minute goals? I think it's really into player mentality more than it is scripting. I know everyone wants to believe in scripting, but in that 45th, 90th minute, I know I'm on like the last chances of the game. I kind of slow down my game a little bit. I work the ball around. The opponent gets a little frantic and is jumping around the place. So I don't know how much in the heart of the game is scripting. I think it's just that's in the heart of the game in general. Both teams are frantic at the very end, just trying to either keep a result or get a better result. So at the end of the day, those 90th minute goals, they never really hurt me too bad. Here we are looking at a little bit of training. I kind of wanted to switch around some players. Now that I did bring in my youngster, I do want to get him in more free kicks, especially in place of some of the players that really aren't growing very well in my training sessions. So I just want to work on all of his stats. Obviously, he's kind of weak all the way around right now. So I want to work on his free kicks. I want to work on his defending. I want to work on his passing and everything. So I'm going to try and, like I said, get him into training as much as possible. Maybe running 2 or 3, maybe even sometimes 4 drills with him, just trying to pump out those results and bring that overall up as fast as possible. Because as you guys saw in that last game, I did put him on my subs, and I did bring him in at the end of the game. But here you also see Escalante and Kappa both raise up with their overalls, which is nice to see. Hopefully it does actually reflect in the game. Escalante has been amazing for us, and I have no interest in really losing him. As you can see here, our other center defensive mid, Danny Garcia, the player in question all season so far, he did come back to me and said that he doesn't want to leave the squad, which was really good to see. I was already kind of adjusting to life without Danny Garcia and thinking who I could bring in. Really weird goal not to actually score right there, even if it was offside. Kind of reminds me of the Mertesacker fail that Arsenal had to deal with in a previous game, where it hit him right in the front of the face and he still couldn't somehow get the ball into the net. So little funny highlight there. Definitely would have liked to have gone 1-0 up in that part of the game, because that was really the only part that I actually felt control in. As you're going to see in some of these highlights, they just kind of are able to pass the ball everywhere, which I don't know what I really did this game that I didn't do in the other games. They were able to do a lot more direct passing and hard hit passing, which really kind of threw off my game. I was kind of hoping for some slower passing where I could have read the passes and actually intercepted the ball. So I was kind of chasing the ball a little bit more so chasing the gaps in which the ball would have gone, which kind of put me at a disadvantage, and I ended up having a lot of players out of place, and they were able to pounce on that pretty heavily. And you're gonna see here I do have a pretty good chance to bring the game back, but sometimes my finishing, I usually play on semi-assisted shooting so that I can kind of direct the ball a little bit more. It does kind of, obviously in Vardy's situation, allow me to also shoot the ball really far out and off target. So once you kind of get used to it, it is a lot more beneficial to play on semi rather than fully assisted shooting. And I would suggest trying to get used to it. It does take a few games, but so does anything that's honestly going to help your game overall. So if you guys are kind of struggling and continuously hitting the ball down the middle, and the keeper is continuously saving it, or they're just really ugly goals and you're not hitting the upper 90 or the bottom corners or anything like that, go ahead and switch it over to semi-assisted shooting and kind of play around with it. Do a few games offline, do a few games online, try to master your shot and master where the ball goes, and I promise you guys it really will help you in the long run. Coming into the second half, like I said, a couple chances here and there, but for the most part really wasn't comfortable going against this team, which is really surprising to me, and I think it was really more of a lackadaisical move on my part, mental mindset that I had that I could just kind of run over this team and not have to worry about it. There were a lot of players in this game though where they were playing out of position, which defensively was my fault, but there were a couple players that, like Inweef, who plays left mid, ended up on the right a lot or ended up in the middle of the field. I think players are just switching positions a lot and playing a lot more freeform than I was actually ready for. So, it kind of felt weird. Definitely gonna have to look at kind of keeping them in their position a little bit more, unless obviously we're in that final third and we're pushing in the box, because obviously you want to try to create as many chances as possible in the box, but other than that you kind of want to keep it in a more secure and structured form. I was reading an article the other day. It was Thierry Henry wrote a segment on Pep Guardiola and what would happen if he ended up moving to the Premier League. And he basically said that he would dominate the league. Whatever team he goes to is going to have a lasting impact immediately. And it comes down to how he plays the game and how structured he is and how much he worries about passing. And you take 2 steps and you pass the ball because the ball moves faster than any player on the pitch. That proved pretty heavily, obviously, in this game. Like I said, the direct fast passing, that was a little too fast for me to kind of keep up with. I wasn't able to really feel comfortable and actually take the ball off of the players. He pushes a little higher up the field, which, everything he does, obviously it works. It's worked in La Liga, it's worked in Germany. It would be very interesting to see if it actually does work in more of a kind of harder league, maybe is the word for it, but just a different kind of league where teams kind of grind out wins, because all these teams are so well put together, and not like these other leagues where it's 2 or 3 dominant teams. The entire league, the entire, I would say, top half could technically have a chance of winning the Premier League, as you're seeing with Leicester this season. As I'm recording this, it is the 2nd of the year, so Arsenal top of the league, which I'm very happy about, obviously. Leicester kind of falling off, but I think that's not to say that they will for the entire second half of the season. I think it is just this holiday period where you're required to play so many games in a short amount of time. I don't think they have the squad depth for it right now. So I still think Leicester has a very good opportunity to end up top 4 in the league. And if they do, kudos on them. I know I'm kind of getting a little sidetracked, but as you guys see this game winding down, it is 2-0. We give up a pretty big opportunity for them right here, because I was pushed up really high up the pitch, and trying to go for at least some sort of goal, some sort of retribution, fix my goal difference. If I was going to lose the game, I only wanted to lose by 1 goal and not necessarily 2. Now I'm losing by 3, so you take the risk where you can. But what I was talking about, it kind of the same problem that I touched on in the last game, that if I were to go into the Europa League next season, I'm not too sure if that would actually benefit me unless I actually truly get squad depth in my squad, which I'm going to have to go for a lot of really cheap players if I'm going to get squad depth, or I could go a few players to really strengthen my starting squad. So obviously that summer transfer window is going to be really telling on what I should do. I think for this winter transfer window, I'm going to worry about making sure that my contracts for my players are taken care of, and I'm not going to lose anybody that I actually want to keep at the end of the season, and also kind of working towards getting players that are ending their contracts. Obviously there's some decent names out there that are coming to the end of their contracts, and I definitely want to be looking at them. All the players that I'm going to be looking for are honestly going to be at that younger spectrum. I'm not going to go for many older players. If there's a couple out there that I really genuinely believe will help the squad, I will obviously go out there and get them if they are at a decent price. But most of the time, those older players, they're really expensive and just really not worth it at the end of the day. So I'm going to try to get a couple players on loan. Hopefully 2-year loans, maybe a year loan with an option to buy. Definitely going to be looking at those options, because I'm not going to be using financial takeover. I'll tell you guys that right now. Throughout this entire series, whatever I do with this squad, it will never be with a financial takeover. And I'm going to kind of keep that whenever I do any of my Road to Glories. I may be doing an Accrington Stanley career mode this season. This FIFA rather, because I did do one last year. It was actually really fun to do. I didn't use a financial takeover, but I just managed to work with really young players, work with my scouts to find really young players, bring them up and sell them for a decent amount of money, like a really good amount of money. There was a player last year that I scouted, found him, brought him to the team, Used him for 2 years. He got up to like 76 overall, I think, and then Liverpool bought him for an absurd amount of money off of me. And then the following season, he really wasn't performing at Liverpool, so I decided to go back out and try to buy him. Bought him for his regular price, which I think was like a third of what Liverpool paid. So I got my player back and was able to make some money off of it. And by the end of it, I think I played 4 seasons and ended up with Neymar on my squad. Obviously, a little bit older of a Neymar, but he was still amazing, and I was able to go ahead and go out there and shell out 80-90K or 80-90 mil for a player. Coming into this game, obviously losing 3-0 in that previous game, I was a little worried, but it was nice to come out here in the 15th minute, go ahead and catch an early goal, and kind of set the mood and the pace for the game. I felt a lot more comfortable coming up against this squad. Obviously, they're not very high up in the table. Probably going to be facing relegation at the end of the season. So I did want to definitely take my chances here to kind of get my goal difference back up and try to push a little bit higher to that into the table. Right now, my placing in the table is a little tentative because there's a couple teams that are short 2 games. They're 2 games back, or they're 1 game back, and everything obviously will take care of itself before the beginning of January. But until then, we don't really know where anybody is in the table because we do have a holiday break coming up. So the first half of the season, obviously we're doing really well. For anybody wondering, I do play on Legendary. I don't know if I really ever touch on that. I know I did a little bit in the beginning of the series, but here, since we're coming into the second half, I know it does look a little odd having this team up in the high ranks, but honestly, they're really not games that I shouldn't be winning. Because yes, I did go up against Barcelona and Real Madrid and pulled results away from both of them. But they weren't games that I should have lost. Real Madrid had a red card, and I was able to take advantage of that. Barcelona, they didn't start Messi, I believe, in that game, and Real Madrid didn't start Ronaldo. So yes and no. Maybe those results weren't realistic, but at the end of the day, I think it all worked out for me. And you see here, we're 2-0 up in the 90th minute. Trying to push for that 3rd goal. If I would have just hit triangle 1 second earlier, I would have been able to go away and try to get that 3-0 victory to kind of just negate that entire last game completely. But this is the last game before the January transfer window, so I'm going to probably be doing a lot of my scouting players and the starting process of signing my players up and going after players in between episodes, and I'll kind of show you guys where I'm at the beginning of next episode, and obviously move through games and more transfers as the episode goes on. So until then, like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys let me know if you do have any players that you think I should be going after in the January transfer window. Not too much money to spend, so obviously keep that in mind, but until then, I'll see you guys later.